Welcome to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Goal podcast, your destination for all things lacrosse. I'm your host, Kyle Devitt. I am not in the studio, but Owen Hart is, and he's still not feeling great because last night, sorry to keep hammering this home.
So we're gonna do this again?
Yeah.
Again, super proud of my guys. I'm not sure how long this is going, but it's gonna take a minute to come back from this one. Shout out to Reading. If they won or lost, great season. But win for me, Kyle. I don't know if this point you're gonna still be dancing or not, but win for me. Do it for Westwood.
Honestly, dude, I almost said that to you the other day because I was like scared going into our quarter, and then like we did great, and now like my ceiling is raised. I feel like you probably felt this too. Like when you win that first one that like maybe people don't think you're gonna win, you're like, wait a minute, I think we're gonna do this. You did that twice. So that's still an awesome achievement, regardless of how it ended. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to get there. I'm dragging. I mean, I'm on fumes, but I'm happy to be hosting the pod. We're back podding again, and our guest in studio is Winchester head coach Phil Reuland. Coach, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks a lot for having me, guys.
Of course, appreciate you coming in studio. A lot of people, that's a big turnoff, but so that's extra bonus points. I love that. When was your first year at Winchester? Just so I know.
I've been coaching at Winchester High School since 2002.
Okay, that's a long time.
It is.
Take us through your before then, your playing days. How'd you get there? What was it like coming up in youth lacrosse, high school, college? Your story, your background.
Sure. Let's start with youth lacrosse. No such thing.
Yep.
Okay. So I grew up in a very different era for Eastern Mass lacrosse. I was introduced to the game my freshman year in high school. I had my folks kept me out of contact sports when I was a kid. I was dying to play football. They always told me you can play football when you get to high school, and I had such a blast playing freshman football at Winchester High School that, loved the contact. And in the spring, the guys were talking about lacrosse. I'm like, can you just, hit somebody in lacrosse like you could this fall in football? And they're like, yeah, you can. It's like, well, let's put the baseball glove away and give this sport a shot. And then my sophomore year had an opportunity to play varsity lacrosse for John Perani, and great experience, a lot of fun, learned a lot, continue to learn a lot from John Perani. And then, graduated high school at 17, young for high school graduate, needed some additional time in the classroom in athletics. So I spent a year at Bridgeton Academy. Played for Mike Fuller. Great experience there. Probably one of the best decisions I've ever made was to take that post-grad year after high school. Moved on to Alfred University, which is about an hour south of Rochester. I joke with people who haven't heard of it. If there's a center of the universe, it's the point furthest from it. It's out there. Not a lot of New Englanders have heard of Alfred University, but they had a great lacrosse program, great school. So spent 4 years playing there. When I graduated, I really took some time away from the game and graduated in 99, started my coaching career in 2002. I think it was like a healthy mental break. And then I just realized how much I missed being a part of a team.
Yeah.
John Perani was gracious enough to hire me as a JV lacrosse coach. Did that for 4 years. Great experience. Great way to start my coaching career. We can, get more into that if you want.
More into the JV stuff.
Yeah. One of the things he made me do immediately was go take a goalie coaching clinic that was run by Coach Quirk up at Endicott at the time. And, when you're the JV head coach, you got to do a little bit of everything, right? You got to coach the offense, the defense. I had, a volunteer assistant, face-offs, rides, clears, right? And that goalie clinic was amazing because, being a young guy coming out of the college game, like, wow, I know lacrosse, I know what I'm talking about. It's like, yeah, what are you going to say to these guys? I'm like, oh man, these were the goalies were the guys I avoided conversations with for the longest time. Now I got to teach them how to do this crazy job. So those 4 years were really important for me. And then I had an opportunity to work with the varsity program up until 2020, mainly working as offensive coordinator. And then 2020 got the head coaching job. Just in time for the season to be canceled. Heck of a start.
Yep, that happened to a couple people.
Yeah.
What you're talking to two JV guys.
Yep.
As far as coaches, I'm the JV coach and varsity assistant in Hopkinton in New Hampshire, and Owen's the JV coach and varsity assistant at Westwood. And we have there's a couple shots of us talking about JV that people take screenshots of, and it's always us like this, telling a story of something that happened. Do you want to share maybe one of your more formative moments as a JV coach early on?
Oh, we're going back some years now. So, well, I mean, the story about just going to the goalie clinic and figuring out how to teach goalies was a really important moment. A lot of fun, a lot of having the opportunity, I think, to be around young guys that are in the process of falling in love with the game and deciding that, they want to be varsity athletes. This is something that they really want to, push forward with. A lot of funny moments working with the younger guys. A lot of moments as you were describing too, the screenshot. But I would say just figuring out the right way to lead a group. Maybe not so many specific little moments here and there, but the overall experience. I think a lot of people look at our job as coaches and be like, oh, I can do that. And then you're standing up in front of a group of people and trying to get them, whether it's athletics or in your professional career, just leading a group of people, trying to get them on the same page to accomplish anything. Figuring out very quickly that wasn't so easy, and then, learning how to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think Vaughn said it on this podcast. So you want a humbling experience, go coach youth. I mean, you want to deal with the patient. I joked on my banquet last year is that JB taught me patience that I didn't know that I had.
Yep.
And then I was the opposite, where I was at a varsity assistant and then went and did JV afterwards. And that was kind of you have to deal with a lot more variables. And I was lucky enough to have an assistant this year. I didn't have one my first year, and that was just brutal. But going back to the varsity side of things, since you've been a head coach of varsity, what's kind of been, did you feel overwhelmed with that? Obviously, Winchester's a program with a lot of tradition, a lot of prestige, and moving up to Division I, and just kind of what was that journey like? Do you feel like it was kind of trial by fire going into this new job as a head coach, or did those years under John kind of really give you a lot of experience and learning?
Both. Certainly the years of experience and being so close to Coach Pirani helped a ton and continues to help. But it started under, very unique circumstance. So certainly a bit of trial by fire. We won a Division II state championship in 2019. And then Coach Pirani stepped down and left us a loaded team. And it's a credit to him. I can give Coach Pirani so much credit for so many different things, but I think a lot of guys would have maybe hung on for another year when you're returning Matt Sefferdini, who I think would have been an All-American candidate in the cage, our best takeaway defenseman. We rotated 3 LSMs because they were all very capable. One of them would have gone in close. 5 of our 6 offensive middies are coming back. 3 of our 4 top attackmen were back. I mean, it was a loaded team. And then it just disappears.
Yeah. And
you inherit a group that I think had one guy that had ever started a high school lacrosse game. So we had, and under very unique circumstances still, right? Guys are masking up and there's no locker room. So how do you maintain and, develop and take care of a locker room culture when your locker room doesn't exist? A little of both. The experience with John Pirani, like I said, it helped a ton and continues to serve me well, I think. But sure, a trial by fire in a lot of other ways. And then another year passes and we get bumped up to Division I, which presents its new set of challenges. I think we were Division I We certainly were when we won back-to-back states in 99 and 2000. And then I think we made the shift right around when I was starting. So it had been a long time since we were a Division I program. So that brought its own set of new challenges as well, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually when I started coaching where I coach now is that next year everything was allowed to play, but you still had to wear masks, and our team picture is like hilarious. It looks like it was taken in a hospital, but there's a bunch of trees.
Yeah.
You're like, what's happening? And you can't I actually can't even tell which kid is which a little bit. It would be easier for me to identify them with their helmets.
Yep.
That's like how much that was, right? Like people don't understand
so
that.
true.
It's like,
that is so true.
Isn't it? Isn't that like a weird phenomenon that if you only get it if you coached in that year? That's the year. Like
this kid looks like this when his shoulder pads are like that, and that kid's stick is a little different than that kid's. It's honestly like even without the mask, sometimes I recognize them kitted up rather than not kitted up. I'm getting all the new guys in. I'm like, okay, once you get your gear on, I'll recognize you.
Yeah, like
that's
who
really
are
true.
you again?
Yeah.
No, I think starting in that time and you kind of being elevated to the head coach in that time is super interesting because I think people do split, like not the growth of lacrosse, but the trajectory of lacrosse, maybe in this area into pre-COVID, post-COVID, for a reason that I think I'm going to say. A lot of post-COVID was a prep boom for
sure.
a lot of schools. And I think people don't realize that still that the reverberations of that are still being felt across public schools, not just in Massachusetts, but New Hampshire and Connecticut as well. There are teams that used to have 40 kids trying out, and now they have a squad of 20, and that's your team, right? So what do you put that down to? Is that just people reshuffling priorities, or is that something else? Like, what in your estimation, because you are a program that does both, right? Like you do put some guys in the prep ranks and you develop guys in the public ranks.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors, and I think that COVID was certainly one of them. If people had the option to send their kid back to school or not, it seemed much more appealing after that length of time to be able to send your kids back to school. There's the whole prep conversation. There's the Wild West, the ISL, and then there's the Catholic prep conversation as well, right? That's included in the MIA. So within that whole world too, I mean, I think there's always going to be people that want their kids to have a Catholic education, right? So there's the appeal there. I think the coaches at those schools are doing a great job. They're doing their job. And I think there's the geography of it is another factor. I think Nauset and Falmouth just had like a semifinal game. They're playing at a very high level, and it's like, well, geographically, what prep school is preying on them?
Yep.
Nobody. There's some cultural factors as well too, which I think determines a lot how hard your town's going to get hit. In Winchester, there's a lot of people that have never mowed their own lawn. They've got the finances for private education. So we're gonna get hit by those things. As far as kind of being able to place where the boom came from, tough to completely put your finger on it. Like I said, I think it's multiple factors. The real question, right, is what happens moving forward. Is that a trend that's going to continue? And I know there's been a lot of discussions on this podcast, and it's always a discussion amongst coaches, like, what changes, if any, should take place.
Yeah. I mean, super Catholic, hashtag super Catholic.
I've listened, and I've heard your super Catholic idea. It's a good one.
Doesn't work for all sports is the problem.
Yeah.
That's a major problem for the people that are gonna, organize and schedule and sanction,
right.
high school athletics. It's a problem within leagues. It's a problem, in the sport. I love your idea. I don't see it ever happening, but there's that trend is undeniable, right? Where it's like, who's the best team in New Hampshire right now, right? Consistently.
BG.
Yep.
Right? And who's the best team in Rhode Island?
Yep. So.
Right. And the Prep and BC High are going to have at it again. So there's an undeniable trend. I like the idea of potentially a Super 8. I don't think you can look at high school sports at any level and see, a decade's worth of championships and not say, hey, maybe there's something within the system that we could change.
Yeah.
So,
I'll go into a little inside baseball how we do stuff here at NELJ, where we're trying to figure out what semifinal and what final would bring the most interest, right? Mm-hmm. And we were talking and we had this whole meeting and we agreed that like the Division II semifinals and final are the most compelling, partially because they're all public schools, but also it's schools that haven't been there before, like fresh faces, right? Or schools that are making a comeback. And then I kind of stopped the conversation. I was like, wait. What if LS and AB both win? And everyone's face went, and I was like, it could happen. It didn't almost happen. I wish that it did though, because that is a better, no offense to SJP and BC High. I have good relationships with all those coaches and players and stuff. It's a better story when it's not you two. Like, sorry, like that. It's not that you're bad. It's that the interest of more than just your community is kind of at stake when we're talking about something so small like lacrosse. Lacrosse is small. It's big to us because we're in it. We had a previous guest who wrote a book about lacrosse, and he's not a lacrosse guy. So we're kind of like, oh, what's it like to be on this planet that's really weird to you? Because we understand that if you're not in it, it's very hard to wrap your mind around. And he was very gracious explaining his position. But I love that there's still an appetite for that. Like schools that can come out of nowhere, schools that can use their culture and not just their, academic standing, shall we say, or position, not standing, position, to get the best players to go against each other. I think that narrative is always going to be compelling. It's why we care about high school sports. It's why I coach at a public school that has 300 kids in it. Like, it's awesome. It's so much fun. The kids are appreciative. It's great. That happens. The more population you add, the more variables you add of prep school, Catholic school. And we've had kids leave too. We have, there's half of Hopkinton has mowed their lawn and the other half maybe doesn't have a lawn. So that's kind of how the town I coach at is. It's a long roundabout way of saying, like, the divisions of Mass have the same aspects to them, right? Like except for Division I. Division I's in this like little pocket dimension with the Catholics in it. And then all these other teams are duking it out to get into that next echelon, your team being one of them, right? With LS, AB, Andover, teams like that. When you go into a season and you're up against that, what do you say to the kids about it? Do you address it at all? Is it something that you just go, we're going to do our best and we're going to try and win a championship the best way we know how?
So we started off this season, we opened up with BC High, and Coach Craigwell's kids play the game the right way. He does a great job. They kicked our butts, shook hands, said good game, absolutely did everything the right way. Again, my argument in that situation is I think those guys have a little bit different job than I do. But we did address it. Our non-league schedule this year they were just monsters.
Yep.
And the frustrating thing for us was the injuries that we dealt with. But, we took on, BC High, Lincoln Sudbury, Hingham, Medfield, Longmeadow, just a little, Andover, just a long list of great lacrosse programs. And we did address it. And I told the kids, that, what did Ric Flair used to say, right? You gotta beat the man to be the man. We want to be around the best competition. And, if we're going to win a state championship, we got to compete at the top level. So the kids embraced it. I was a little reluctant to schedule BC High. They reached out to us, and my kids were like, "Let's do it. Let's play them. This would be great." And again, I was reluctant because I've always been more of an advocate for a healthy separation between those institutions and public schools. It's, I have nothing but respect for those guys. Those guys are doing their job. They're operating within, what the system is. I have some questions about the system. I know a lot of other coaches do too, but those guys, great coaches, great teams. Wish them well.
Maybe like, why are all 4 finals being played at Mass Maritime?
Yeah.
What are we doing? Someone sent me that, and I thought someone was lying to me. That's how I don't care. MIA, I'm going to be critical of you. That's insane.
Yeah.
Not that you chose the site. When you chose it, I don't know how you chose it. Like, when you chose it, the week of, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy to me. And I don't understand how that happens. And I'm from a much smaller state, and we had all of our stuff ready preseason of where the teams are going to play. And we used to have everybody together. Now we don't, because we can't, because different things happen with different schools. We used to have it on Sunday. Hopkinton is the reason you can't have it on Sunday anymore, because we had a Mormon player and they wouldn't move it. And let's just say some people were contacted, and now it's on Saturday, probably forever. So it was one of those things that, when you're going through it, and I'm trying to cover it. And again, this is year 5 of me covering mass lacrosse. And I say it every year, this is a massive beast of a thing. It's a beast of a thing with 1,000 scales and all these different teams, all these different levels, and levels don't even matter to division, which is like so confusing to me, because where I'm from, that's how you differentiate. Obviously there's worse teams that go up and down, but the fact that like Medfield, who, by the way, Coach Ice sent me a text. You were right, Owen.
Oh yeah.
I wrote that they did really great against Hingham, a D2 team, and he's like, we also beat D1 teams, Kyle. And I was like, wow, man, thanks for reading. I love it.
Located 8 miles outside of Philadelphia, Haverford College provides a collaborative, ethical, and academically rigorous environment where student agency and leadership can thrive. Our men's lacrosse program promotes the college mission because leadership drives you to become the best version of yourself. Leadership nurtures growth and accountability. Leadership adapts to overcome challenges in an ever-changing world. We are Haverford College Men's Lacrosse, and leadership is in our DNA.
Where do you see the future of this going with the divisions? Like, is there enough to add a 5th division? Probably not, right? Like, what's the cutoff for each population? I know with us, it's way different than it is for you guys, but the population's only growing in Massachusetts. So you're kind of, how many more schools can pick it up? Do you do it by people petitioning down or petitioning up? Is that something that can occur in the MIA system?
Oh, you take that, Coach.
Yeah. Petitioning down's tough, just to address that.
Yeah.
And I think room for a 5th division is tough as well. I think that at the Division 1 level, again, a Super 8 alternative might make things a little bit more competitive and give some more teams maybe the opportunity to compete a little deeper into the tournament. But yeah, that's for the politicians to sort out. I don't have a lot of strong opinions on divisions, as much as, a power ranking system that seems to make, leagues fairly irrelevant. And I guess the divisions plays into that a little bit as well, right? I mean, I think we're in a league with Division 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what does the league with a power ranking system in 4 different divisions really mean at this point?
The leagues make no sense to me either.
Yeah.
Like, we don't even bother with it up here. Like, we just do divisions, and we have overpopulated divisions and then underpopulated and then overpopulated, 1, 2, 3. That's how it goes. But the leagues, I feel like they're just grandfathered in, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just this refusal to change systems because it's difficult, even if it makes sense. That's the thing that I kind of can't wrap my head around. I know that's high school sports politics and, like, shut up, Kyle, you don't know what you're talking about. But, like, at some point, logic has to win out. No?
It's just a thing where we talked about it with the whole Super Cat thing, where just lacrosse is just so different than every other sport in the MIA that every single time it just provides new issues and all that kind of stuff. And it's just a thing where we exist in such a different plane than all the other sports going on that it just causes these weird. We have the same thing where our league is ever changing, and so many teams with different skill levels, different divisions, and it's always a new story every single day. I'm envious of you, Kyle, that you don't have to deal with that. I gotta say.
Yeah, that's great. And you do know what you're talking about. And a lot of it from our perspective does feel like common sense. But, from the perspective of administrators, right, the scheduling and how those things are going to work out is the overall, the big picture is what they're looking at, and less so as the uniqueness of what you would need to do to really do what's best for lacrosse.
Yep. Just going back to what you talked about, the injuries that you dealt with this year, obviously that one at Medfield, that was a really tough one. I just had I mentioned a kid yesterday, broke his collarbone in the start of the second quarter. And I'm fairly new to this, 5 years in. You've obviously had a long experience. It never really gets easier for me whenever I have to get a kid off the field, carted off, whatever it is. It always sticks with me. I'm still thinking about that play. And just kind of to tell me just what that's like as a coach when you have that player that you know is not coming back, and it's just really tough. And the team tries to rally around it, but it's always in the back of mind. It still hurts.
So, kind of looking back throughout my coaching career, I feel like we've been pretty lucky up to this point, and it's like our luck ran out this year, and we had a lot of injuries. And we had some guys with some serious injuries in other sports coming into the season. My son was one of them. My son broke his tib fib in football. He was our backup goalie this year. We had 2 broken wrists, the ACL tear, and sprains and pulled muscles that were bad enough for guys to miss games. So, yeah, the moment at Medfield was brutal. Cooper Spence is an amazing human being, great student, and a great lacrosse player, and he addresses those things in that order, which is what we want out of our guys. We didn't have a senior pole this year. He was our most experienced and best and close defenseman that was really directing traffic in that end. So to see him, the pain is one thing. And again, I experienced this with my son when he broke his leg. The pain is one thing, but that kind of fear that you see and hear from them in that situation is really gut-wrenching, because they know that they're hurt badly. They don't know, how to, assess their injury in the moment, but they know it's something significant. It's really, really difficult. Cooper had successful surgery to fix the torn ACL yesterday. So I spoke with him briefly, or was, texting with him. And I think that it's a credit to him and some of our other guys that were injured this season, the way that they stayed as involved as they possibly could. And Cooper is a great example of that. His teammates elected him captain, and I'm looking around in pregame. We need balls on the end line, and he's already there, putting them out. Anything he can do to help the team, he's still doing. So I think it's important to just try to assure those guys that they're still a part of what's going on and involve them in any way you can. And thankfully for us, we had still a pretty young group. So, the guys that did get hurt this season, they haven't played their last, high school lacrosse. They're all going to come back. But awesome. It was definitely a brutal year for injuries for us, unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever had that happen, Kyle, but it never gets easier.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can experience it yourself, and it's still not as bad as when it happens to one of your kids.
That's a good point.
We had a kid. I mean, this is the famous injury story that didn't happen on the field. Our starting goalie, my first year at Hopkinton, was incredible, 6'5". He went on to play at Keene State, just pure shot stopper. One day, probably a couple weeks before preseason, he's wearing flip flops, and he goes to dunk a lacrosse ball in the parking lot at one of the gravel hoops and breaks his leg. And it's okay, well, now we gotta train up a kid who's never played any sports before to be our goalie, but also through that, he kept coming to games. He's got pins and stuff. I mean, he had a lot of stuff wrong. He had everything holding his leg together. That's how bad the break was. And I remember him being there when we lost in the semifinals to Trinity. The team would go on to win that year. And I was like, what we do wrong? Just talk to him like a player. I think that's one of the best things you can do is keep them involved. And he was just like, we didn't play. And I was like, did we deserve to win? And he's like, no. And I was like, then that's why we didn't win, man. It's not your fault. It's not anyone's fault that's here. We didn't deserve it. You have to deserve to win in lacrosse. It's not like soccer or hockey where a goal just goes in sometimes. And, there's a mistake and a goal goes in. Lacrosse is not a game of mistakes. There are people that say that. I rail against that 1,000%. That lacrosse is not a game of mistakes. Lacrosse is a game of execution. And if you don't do that well, you don't have a chance to win. But it's not mistakes that define games. I don't think. I don't know, Coach, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, well, we don't really have the equivalent of puck luck. I'll give you that. Yeah, I mean, we put heavy emphasis on how hard we play, right? If we're never going to be perfect, so to your point, did we deserve to win? If you've got that hard work ethic and you're consistent with how hard you play, you can make up for those mistakes.
Right.
Yeah. Going off, it's kind of been, I can say, a little bit of a dour podcast. We kind of got to a little bit of issues, some injuries, this stuff and the other.
Well, you had no idea that my son broke his leg this fall, so you're like, how do you feel in that moment? Well, I know exactly how those parents felt because I felt it too. So but just a little curveball.
going on a little positive note, I mean, you mentioned that state title in 2019. Other than that, what are some the wins you look back on the most fondly, whether it was a tournament win or just a regular season game that was really important, a league game? What are some of those specific memories that you often go back to and think about any given day?
Been a lot over the years. Brian Vaughn is a friend of mine. I have a lot of respect for those guys. So, last year, sneaking past those guys by a goal, they're just great every year. So the few times over the years where we've gotten the best of those guys is definitely something memorable. Because more often than not, they get you. And I have a lot of respect for him and Jake Beebe and Jason Orlando and all the guys that contribute to that program. So beating them a year ago was a good win for my head coaching career for sure. The state championship was definitely a lot of fun. Again, it's not easy to beat Medfield, but snuck past
Still
them
never done it
by a goal. And boy, if if we go way back, there's some teams that we don't even play anymore. I mean, when Coach was Pinchon was at Beverly, beating those guys in a sectional championship game was a huge deal. We had be dour again here, a tragic situation in 2014 when our captain Patrick Gill was killed in a car accident. Yeah. And we had a losing season that year. We missed the tournament by a goal. I think it was the first losing season we had since like 1987. So to come back the following year and win a sectional championship, that's a pretty memorable game as well.
Yeah. A little inside baseball stuff. A guy who's on my staff with Z, he was also worked at Winchester for a long time. Dave Frederickson.
Yep.
He obviously you worked with them closely, and we kept in touch a little bit. I told him, I was like, "Oh, I'm having Phil on the podcast. I'm going to bring up some stories." And he goes, "What podcast?" I goes, "Thanks for listening. Appreciate it, Dave. Good to know that you're keeping up with what I'm doing." He was my guidance counselor, actually, funny enough. And now I'm coaching with him, and he doesn't know what I'm up to. So. Thanks. I'll send him this clip. But yeah, I've heard a couple of those stories from the previous Winchester days. But yeah, that's a little behind the scenes look, Kyle, from more Massachusetts drama that you just don't get.
Well, I'm a pretty old school guy, and I think that Dave's probably even more old school than me. So I'm not even sure he knows what a podcast is.
Yeah.
So don't be too offended by that.
No, his helmet had strings in it back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, I do get DMs and emails every time there isn't a pod. And I'm like, guys, for real, we're coaching, we're writing 10 articles a week. Like, come on, it's going to come when it comes, and we're going to have good guests. I have people that just hit me up on text that I don't even know who their number is, but it's like, it's always a mass number. And it's like, hey, he was on the pod this week. I'm like, I don't know who this is. How do you have my number? I don't understand. It's funny because like there is that appetite for it, but it's so specific. Yeah. Of like who listens and what they want to hear and who they want to hear us talking to. And, your name has definitely come up several times before. I've never met you. I kind of want to know what your playing philosophy is. Like, are you defense first, offense first? Like, do you play free flowing? Do you play structured? Like, how is your team set up to succeed when you have guys like we talked about it previously, like Gianni and Ted Brudreski on your squad?
Yeah, well, we don't have the luxury of a system. I think that the first thing we do is look at, what the pieces are and try to come up with a good game plan based on what we've got and not, what you wish you had or what would work in a particular system that you might not have the guys for. So I think that's step one. We've recently been a little more free-flowing offensively, and will continue to be because we've got some great players, some guys that we can kind of, just let loose. There was a similar progression leading to that 2019 state championship team because we had so many guys in that group that had played since they were freshmen. And, we're a little tighter on the reins when we're dealing with puppies, right? And, go to this cone and go here. And, all I want to hear is, yes, coach. And then when those guys, around 2018, 2019, as we matured, there was a little more welcome feedback from those guys and what they thought would work. And we started to have the conversation with our guys about that this year. Because again, we've got a group that was pretty experienced from their freshman year, and now that they're older, a little more matured, we've gotten some great feedback from the kids. So I think for us, it starts with like, what do we got? Not like this is like our offense, and how are we going to get the kids to do it? It's more like, well, these are the guys we have, and this is their skill set, what they're capable of. So what situations can we put them in that's going to complement what they're good at? Defensively, we've very traditionally been, crease sliding man defense. It's tough to get away from that because that side of the field, I feel like maybe we're a little more traditional. It's been kind of a part of who we've been for so long. But, you know, there's some tempting opportunities to, you know, throw in a zone coming off of a timeout and mix it up and do some different things. Again, I think we start with who we've got, and we're not really, you know, married to too much other than, you know, playing hard and coming up with schemes that complement what our guys are good at.
Yeah.
And the lacrosse is lacrosse, right? I mean, some people who don't know lacrosse are kind of like, oh, you know, who's offsides and this and that. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, it's not complicated, right? I mean, we're gonna, you know, initiate and draw a double and move the ball and try to throw the ball in the net, and we're gonna communicate on defense and, you know, double and recover and
When you said we don't have a system, my heart stopped for half a second.
Yeah.
I literally went, oh my God, what?
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine coaching without not my system, but a system. And our base is very much like, what did I do in college? What did I like? And then I'm just going to like, if you don't like this, you're a midi. Like, that's kind of how I do everything with my team. But like, that is a great point. And I didn't learn that till I was coaching in college, like my 4th, 5th, 6th year, where I kept trying to run that offense. And then I was like, oh, I have 4 shooters and 1 dodger. Maybe 1-4-1. Is that what we're doing now? And we did. And you have to adjust to what you do. And it's so funny to me that coaches do get married to systems, you know, myself included. Like, we get really hung up on stuff. I mean, this year we changed our man up and no one noticed. Like, it was just like, oh, we're just going to do what everyone else does now. Okay. We have the guys to do that. And that's such a great point about offense. But on the defensive side of the ball, I don't think we've ever changed from being a pressure man, AJ crease slide switch. We've never deviated. And it's one of those things where like kids come up through the youth ranks knowing how to play the defense, but the offense is like, I'm working with aliens sometimes, you know, and it's
I think you get fewer options on the defensive side of the ball. Right. I
mean, it's all decision making, right? Like that's the funniest thing about lacrosse. People always ask me about the different levels and stuff. I'm like, oh, well, if he makes better decisions, he's a better player. Period. Like, people will compare people and be like, oh, well, no, he makes a better decision, he's better. And they'll be like, but this guy has more points. And I'm like, no, that's how everyone thinks it goes. That's not how it goes.
Yeah.
It's decision making on offense, decision making on defense. How you clear, how you see the field, like all that stuff is why college coaches like talk to players and don't just like watch tape. Right. So like that like recruiting era during COVID was so interesting because I know for a fact, I've talked to them, coaches that never recruited through tape were forced to recruit through tape and they hated it. And I asked one like why he hated it. And he was like, sometimes you just got to get down and like see the ponies. You got to watch them run. If you can't watch the ponies run, how do you know who's fast? And like tape, you can see it on tape, but like, you don't know, you don't know what kind of decisions they're making all the time. Which I think is super fascinating. Super great part about being a coach is dissecting that, chopping that up. And, everything I've heard about your style is that it's very straight line. Like you're not doing crazy stuff. And you just said that, but I also heard that about you before anything. It's like, yeah, they know what they're doing and they have a plan. Right. And I think that's also a difference between the divisions, not just of size, but of caliber of teams throughout Massachusetts.
Yeah. Well, keep things simple if you can. All right. And if simplicity serves you well, then stick with it. And I'll say that, to a certain extent, right? Coaching's overrated. If you got the guys, what do you know? Your system's working brilliantly.
What did Z say to you? Tell them what Z said to you.
Oh yeah. My job this time of year is to make sure the ball's around and the water's cold.
Sure. Right. And that kind of journey as a coach and like the trial and error, I will say that as an offensive coordinator, zone offense is something that, tried different things. And I still remember having a look that was like too simple. There wasn't enough movement. There was the ball movement and the bodies weren't moving enough to kind of drag people out of their zone. And then, you know, my next brilliant move was to introduce something that was too complicated. You know, and you know, I think it was something that Duke was doing. You know, I'm like, well, it works for Duke. You know, why wouldn't it work for, you know, 16-year-old high school kids? And it was, you know, equally as frustrating. And then eventually found something that was kind of right in the middle that we've stuck with since, that works really well. And again, you know, if you've got you know, talented players, and we've got some pretty talented players, you know, they'll make your coaching strategy look really, really solid. So,
yeah. Funny about bringing up the changes, and you, Kyle, talked about it took you 4 but 5 years of your systems. I had similar issues as a new coach, where it was like my ideas were too big. I had 7 different man-ups I wanted to try. My scouting reports were that thick for a Tuesday game versus a league opponent, and just stuff that you just, once you get into the thick of it, you realize that's not really how it goes. Like, is there any stuff that you have drastically changed? You think it's just small things over time you've picked up, or is anything really changed from the time you started to now?
Well, I mean, the game from when I started till now, so much has changed. All right. And we could do a whole separate show on, you know, the rise of club sports and the rise of the lax dad. It's a different world. So I think that, you know, you got to change with the times to a certain degree. I remember when, you know, like a pairs offense, for example, was like a newer idea, and we were toying around with it. And, you know, every team that I look at and scout now, it's like, it's just part of like what people do offensively now. So I think a lot of it is, I mean, you look at what other people are doing and you take it and make it your own, right? I mean, how many coaches have reinvented the wheel of the game, and you know, the majority of us are just looking at other things that work as they come along and incorporating what we like or what we think will work. So I think there's some trends in the game like that sure I've changed over the years, and probably will continue to. You know, as far as like things that I've changed as a coach, I think I'm a lot more patient now, you know. I think that some things that have changed are just the amount of video that's out there, right? It's changing the way that people share information. It's changing the way that people scout. You know, the story you were saying about the college coach that wanted to see the ponies run. I still like to, if I can, I like to see who I'm scouting, like in person.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I think you get a much better idea of what you're actually up against when you see it in person. You see a video, and then you see the same player. Like, man, he's just a lot faster in person.
Yeah, that's why our scoreboard runs off a generator, and we don't film anything, because no one films anything on us. It's our secret. It really is. Like, other teams will film us when we go there, but totally different team at home. And it's one of the most fun things ever when people come down this long dirt road and they're like, this is the field? Where's their scoreboard? Like, Owen and I talked about this a bunch. We tried to get our JV teams to play this year.
Yeah.
And I think our ADs were just like, who are these idiots trying to get us to play across state lines? Like, what is happening? But that's one of the fun things about lacrosse, is how close all the contact is with everybody, right? Like, the respect of the coaches in Mass is how do I say this diplomatically? Very different from what it is in New Hampshire, I would say. It just is, because there are head coaches of teams, I'm not saying in my division, that aren't lacrosse coaches. They're like legit babysitters for the kids, and it's to me, it's a disservice, but like, that's their program. They can do whatever they want. But when I talk to people from Mass, everybody is always like, oh man, this kid is great. That's the first thing everyone says. I'll say a team, and they'll be like, have you seen this kid play? You know, like, that's one of the great things about Mass that like doesn't get talked about enough. Everyone's talking about traffic and bad weather, but I'm talking about coaches that are like, have you seen this team? This team is sick. Look, watch what they do with this kid. This kid does this so well. And you have one of those kids on your team in Gianni DiPremio, who I didn't realize. I did a search for him on Lax Journal. I was like, I've been writing about this kid for 3 years. Like, because he plays different positions. So everybody gets filed away here in the brain as Fogo, D-mid, midi. And he's played, and like, I saw him play long pole at Legacy. And I was like, what is happening? You know what? That's just a guy I can't not write about. It's been great to watch him develop. To commit to Navy is so awesome for him. Can you just tell me, we're going to end up, we're kind of out of time, but can you just kind of end it on his journey and, you know, what his impact has meant to your program?
Gianni's another guy that very recently was elected 26 captain by his peers. Just to comment on that too, it's a whole other discussion. I'm always interested talking to coaches about their how they pick their captains, how they select captains. We elect our captains. We do it at the end of the season. We have a tradition where we don't leave our locker room without leaders. And so, that's the kind of respect he has from his teammates. Tough kid, takes a pounding physically. Recently had a discussion with him about taking some days off, right? Where so much of your coach, and it tells you a lot about him. It's makes sense that he's going to be a Navy guy because he works very hard, and it's kind of the opposite conversation you would expect from coaches, right? It's like, oh, do more, work harder. I'm like, oh man, take a day off here and there. You're a running back, a very good running back on the football team. You're constantly working out in the gym and running and on the cage and playing your club lacrosse. I'm like, take a day at the pool, man. Make sure you rest up and heal. He's a great kid, a great young man. Very proud of him. He's been, a major contributor for our team for the last 3 years. I think his coaches and his teammates really respect his work ethic, his grit. He's a bit of an oddity, right? To win that many face-offs, to help us clear the ball, to be a good defensive player. And then throw the ball in the net 30 times. He's a special kid. We're very proud of him.
Awesome. All right, Coach. Thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate you giving us your time here in the unfortunately now the off season, but we got, by the time this comes out, the championships will have been played in all the states, and we will be in the second season, the summer season. But we just really want to thank you for coming on, and
thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And good luck to you.
Oh, thank you. Future Kyle will appreciate it, even if we lose.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And we want to thank you again for listening to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Goal podcast. Rowan Hart and Kyle Devitt. We'll see you next time.